Sixth take is the charm. Let's do this. I'll relay some Colin McRae rally footage so you don't have to stare at me the whole video. The rumors are true. The former iRacing streamer Jason Jacoby was arrested for a third time today, and he is currently facing, I believe, 5 counts of aggravated stalking. Those are felony charges. He's probably going to state prison. He won't be out for a while. This is the big one. So a lot of you guys probably, wanting some sort of, informal slash thorough analysis on this whole situation. While it's important to get excited over this moment because this is a big deal for Jason. He's in a lot of shit right now. Felony charges means he will do time in state prison. He'll probably be in there for anywhere from 1 to 4 years based on how the trial pans out and based on how much they can ding him with, as well as any sort of good behavior while in prison that counteracts this. What this means is that when he gets out, because he does have felony charges, what's going to happen is that he'll have several stipulations. So in the future, if he does return to YouTube, starts harassing people again, a quick call to his parole officer and he will be right back to jail. There will be none of this bullshit that we faced over the past couple of years when watching this all play out, where people have called the cops several times on this guy for making creepy videos threatening the life of his old high school teacher, and nothing happens. We're past that point now. If he does return to social media for any reason, all you have to do is call his parole officer, which I'm sure the number will be shared around when that time comes, and he will go right back to jail and face a whole new slew of charges. So how do I feel about his arrest today? A lot of people are probably wondering that because he's affected basically my career. I'm bittersweet about it. At the end of the day, it's really important that Mackenzie, who is his ex-girlfriend slash former iRacing stream moderator, does feel some peace because Jason is off the streets and he can't directly hurt her. They only lived about 20 minutes apart, so if Jason had any sort of serious meltdown, she was in his blast radius, and that's really, really scary. Unfortunately, the 5 counts of aggravated stalking he's facing, while pretty big charges, Jason's entire online behavior is a lot bigger than the scope of just a girl 20 minutes away from his house. Jason over the years has been stalking his high school teacher. Jason has been stalking me for a couple of years. Jason's been stalking this guy named Rhett McBride, who I think works at Augusta National Golf Course. And Jason's also been stalking Hendrick Motorsports. All of these people really don't get to see justice served because the charges only deal with how Jason has acted towards Mackenzie. So there's a school teacher that's terrified of him. There's a professional race team that has probably received hundreds of threats from him. I've lost my job over this guy. Rhett McBride probably had a very awkward time explaining to upper management at Augusta National Golf Course who this Jason Jacoby guy was. And I think Black Flags Matter, otherwise known as Darian Gilliam, he's a NASCAR content creator, also has had to explain to his sponsors and his family members and his friends and probably even his school why there is this crazy guy on YouTube saying he's a pedophile and all sorts of weird shit like how Darian fucks goats. These other people, part of Jason's kind of extended blast radius, are still waiting for police to call them back, which is really bizarre. All five of us have sent in, a statement. We have sent in evidence to law enforcement, and we're lucky to even get a call back. So while again, it's really exciting that justice has been served in Mackenzie's case, and she can go to bed really really easy tonight, compared to the last few months where every single night Jason would upload something so unbelievably crazy that she became really concerned for her safety. There's a wider web of destruction that Jason has partaken in that still hasn't been addressed after several years, which is just really bizarre, and I really hope it gets dealt with. That being said, it's really important to acknowledge the community's role in this whole situation. It's really important we did what we did by making videos on it, by making people aware of it, for two reasons. First of all, the police did, in fact, reach out to us asking if we had certain videos saved. There were some guys, I won't name names just so Jason or their family can't zero in on who's behind this, but there were a multitude of people who did have Google archives going, not just myself, where when the police came knocking and saying, hey, do you have this specific video saved, we were able to say, yes, we do, here's the download link. And that was really, really important for them to press charges on him. Without that, that would have basically fucked the whole situation. Second, it's important that we got this information out there because in the event Jason did hurt someone, the victims' families, let's say Jason, drove his car at full speed into a Domino's Pizza. I know it sounds bizarre, but he essentially did the same thing a couple of years back when he tried to kill himself, supposedly. If he did something like that and hurt someone, the victims' families would discover our massive multitude of videos and our intricate documentation showing that, hey, this guy was a problem. We reported him to the police several times on X, Y, and Z dates. Nothing was done about him. He was still walking free. If Jason wasn't picked up today and he proceeded to go hurt someone, the victims' families would be able to use that as evidence to sue the state of Georgia. Do you understand what I'm implying here? That you could build a really interesting legal case for the victims' families to say that, like, hey, cops knew about this guy. They were called constantly about his behavior. Almost everyone knew he was going to go on a rampage at some point, and he did, and you did nothing. They would be able to sue for a serious amount of money, and it would probably wind up on CNN or just, the relevant news sources, because the situation very much did mirror what was going on with Elliot Rodger back in the day. If you've ever watched, this is 6 or 7 years ago now, there was a guy, this would have been the Isla Vista killings, there was basically a guy around Jason's age, maybe a bit younger, mid to early 20s, I believe, who made crazy YouTube videos like Jason. He would sit in his BMW and post these crazy rants to YouTube that only like 50 people would watch, saying how he hated all women, he was going to get his day of retribution one day, and would even go on to like bodybuilding forums the same way Jason would go on Twitter with his crazy accounts and make creepy as fuck posts. And guys would respond to him saying like, dude, you sound like a mass killer. Well, that's what he ended up doing. The fact that we caught this, before a situation like this ended up playing out, and we helped put it on the police's radar and supply them with the evidence they needed to press charges and apprehend him before something like that happened, that's really fucking important. I don't think anyone understands what we just did. So, what is the next step with the situation? Is it over? Well, no, it's not going to be over. I might have mentioned this in the video, I might not have. This is like my 6th take of this shit. Jason is going to be released from prison eventually. He's not going to be sitting in there for 20 years. He'll be out in 1 to 4 years. He will have strict stipulations to follow, and if he breaks them, he will go back to jail, which means if he does show up on Twitter here in the next 3 to 4 years, or show up in the iRacing forums, or show up on YouTube doing the same shit he was, known for doing before, there will probably be a parole officer that you can contact to be like, hey, he's violated his parole conditions, you need to send him back to jail, and he'll be taken care of quite quickly. That's really important, and again, when that time comes, that number will probably be shared among trusted sim racers in the sim racing community, and you'll be able to get it if you need it. If he's come after you, if he's come after a friend of yours, if he's going after developers or any one of us, once again, by whatever means he decides to do so. It's weird. It's one of those situations where we really can't predict what's going to happen. Moving forward, who should we be angry at? I don't think we should be angry at Jason. Jason is very obviously mentally ill. Jason has schizophrenia. Jason is not doing this for attention. The idea that we should just ignore him and he'll go away, that is how internet trolls work. That is not how mental illness works. There are several YouTube videos and weird channels you can find on subreddits like Deep Into YouTube that feature videos just like Jason's. They don't have an audience. Sometimes they have less than 10 viewers total across all their videos, and they just upload crazy rants. They're not doing this for attention. They're schizophrenic. At some point, it's very tough to discern how much Jason is responsible for his actions or not, which leads me to my next point. I think if the community wants to dig any further on this, it's probably worth questioning the role his family played in this. Jason has posted on his blog several times, including one really specific post he made where he and his mom supposedly got into a fight because the family was paying out the ass in legal fees to try and keep him out of trouble. That kind of implies that the family knew, at least to some extent, that he was partaking in this behavior, and rather than working to address it and fix it and make things right with whoever his victims were, they just threw money at everything. There's also a comment Jason left on one of his last videos where he admits that his brother had intentionally gone out, found an old phone of Jason's, charged it back up, and used it to try and screenshot messages from his ex-girlfriend close to 4 years ago to try and damage her character. This is not a family who is trying to live with and struggle with a son who deals with a mental illness. This is a family desperately trying to keep their son out of trouble by any means necessary, and that's very, very scary. Again, one of my last videos I also showed evidence that someone had tried messaging his mom on Facebook. I believe it was Justin Petshower, being like, hey, your son's being crazy and stalking sim racers, and rather than be, oh my god, I'm so sorry, what can we do to make this better, she just fucking blocked him. As far as I'm concerned, the family is culpable, or at least somewhat responsible for Jason's actions towards the sim racing community as a whole and all the different people he stalked over the past 4 or 5 years. It was in their house, on their internet connection. They were attempting to hide electronics from him. They, for the most part, failed at that, and when Jason ran into legal trouble, they began paying out the ass and scrambling to try and defend him, even when it was very obvious that their son had done something wrong. That's not good. That, to me, makes it seem like the next phase of this whole situation, in terms of the people Jason has stalked getting charges pressed or taking some sort of action against, has nothing to do with chasing after Jason. It's instead chasing after his parents and trying to prove how much they knew and when. Because as far as I'm concerned, the story does not stop at Jason. As far as I'm concerned, his family of neurotypical people who do not struggle with mental illness were attempting to defend him, keep him out of trouble, and just throw money at all the issues Jason ran into and caused for himself to make everything go away. I would have pulled down absolutely everything, all of my content on Jason, everything, every last video. If someone from his family reached out to me and said, "We're so sorry, our son is very, very sick. This is really embarrassing for us to deal with. How can we make the situation better? We will write a letter, to your company saying, hey, our kid's sick. He sent, a bunch of crazy shit that he didn't really mean. Please do not fire this person." Jason's family never did this. They were approached several times by several different people, all of which who had run-ins with Jason were quite creeped out by his behavior. This route was never taken. I will gladly encourage people to stop, making fun of him on YouTube, making fun of him on Twitter. If they reached out and said, "We're so fucking sorry, our kid is really fucked up." They never did. Instead, there's more and more evidence pointing to the fact that they actively tried to cover for him. That they actively knew that Jason was this destructive and this hell-bent on stalking people, and instead questioned how or what they could do to make it all go away. What they could do to keep him out of trouble. This, unfortunately, is quite common with the families of people who struggle with schizophrenia. It's something you can see on schizophrenia support forums all over the place. Someone's kid will get into trouble, doesn't matter how old they are, and often the first replies to a thread are, you need to hire a lawyer. So it's pretty normal. Over the years, they have handled this astronomically poorly, and some of us want some fucking answers.